So Jane Schoenbraun is a fascinating filmmaker who got people talking with their 2024 film, I Saw the TV Glow. Did you know it? They've got a new movie in theaters this week, and I think this one is even better. Hey everybody, I'm Sean McBride, the movie guy, and today let's talk about teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma.
I don't want to make another dumb sequel in the Camp Miasma franchise. I don't want to make a remake of a remake of a remake. I want to make something that feels fresh and new.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's clearly the same person from Miasma 1, the final girl, but she's so much more.
Hannah Einbinder stars in Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. She plays Chris, a young filmmaker who is brought in to resurrect the Camp Miasma horror franchise, which is a cheesy series of slasher films that was made back in the 1980s. So it turns out that the Camp Miasma films haven't aged very well because they were filled with kind of transphobic content, but Hollywood producers think that they can resurrect the horror franchise if they hire a queer filmmaker like Chris to come put her unique spin on things. Now, Chris's spin includes tracking down Billy, who's played by Gillian Anderson. Billy was the final girl in the original movie, which made her into something of a cult hero. But then she suddenly disappeared from acting and from the world in general. So Chris decides that she just has to get Billy to appear in the remake, and she tracks her down while living in an old campground, which is where the original movie was filmed. So given the film's premise, this is a horror or a horror adjacent movie. I mean, in the final act, Chris and Billy find themselves transported into Camp Miasma, where they are stalked by the film's original slasher killer known as Little Death. Things do get very bloody, and it should certainly satisfy those with a craving for cinematic bloodshed. But I bring this up because if you're going to this movie hoping to see a fun 80s style slasher movie, well, I think you're in for a bit of a surprise. That's because the main takeaway from this movie is that of a young filmmaker who's going through a sexual awakening when she gets to meet a scream idol from her youth. This is a film that's filled with genuine sexual energy, and it uses the cheesy horror flick as a metaphor for sapphic desire. I mean, I certainly appreciate a fright flick that has more on its mind than just the old stabby. Now, this all works because of two amazing performances from Einbinder and Anderson. So we know Einbinder as the second banana in the TV show Hacks, but here she really gets to shine with a messy but driven performance that is perfect for a character who's trying to figure out her particular brand of desire. And as good as she is, Anderson matches her beat for beat. She's channeling Norma Desmond mixed up with a little bit of Dolly Parton to keep things interesting. She plays an intriguing and totally messed up woman, and I'm kind of low-key obsessed with the character and the performance. But I think the real revelation here is director Jane Schoenbraun. Look, I appreciate their last film, I Saw the TV Glow, but that's partly due to my love of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is a big influence on that film. I also thought that that movie was a little unfocused and, quite camp and not always in a good way. But I think this movie finds Schoenbraun more in control of their ideas. Sure, they still have a lot of weird and crazy creative story ideas, but this time around they feel a little more unified, like they're working towards one unified goal. Now don't get me wrong, the film is still very messy, and it's pinging all over the place with all sorts of strange metaphors and side tangents, but those crazy impulses give the film a lot of energy. Mix this up with a unique take on trans identity issues, and it really makes for a fascinating movie. Look, I would still prefer a bit more focus and maybe a bit more filmmaking gloss from the director, but between the fun premise, two really solid performances, and well, yeah, buckets and buckets of blood, this is one of the most memorable movies I've seen in a long time. It's a lot of fun and quite thought-provoking, which is why I give Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma 3 stars out of 4. So one of those metaphors is the idea that food, candy, fried chicken, that it's a stand-in for sexual pleasure. The idea of consuming things, tying that to sexual desire. And it is a fun and very funny at times metaphor, but I'm not sure it really works. I'm curious, if you saw the movie, did you think these metaphors worked, or did you think they were just kind of crazy things thrown out there? If so, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Comment below. Now, right up the top, thank you very much for subscribing to the channel, and that way you can get all of these reviews just as soon as they drop. And every week we go over all of the week's big new movie releases. Just search for Two Movie Guys on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up next, we're going to talk about this cute, charming movie about families and fairy folk. It's from this really acclaimed British children's book writer, someone that I'd never heard of before. And look, my mom is British, so I don't know how I missed this person. Anyway, coming up next, we'll be talking about The Magic Faraway Tree. See you then. Bye.